Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Action Movie Anatomy. It's Wednesday. We're talking about a cult classic, one of the favorite movies of the fans of this show. This is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. We're going to break the whole thing down for you guys. We got a special guest. We'll see you in a second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Watch that fade. We're gonna fade. Right down. Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Just got cool. It just got cool.
Up in the world.
The weather, the temperature just brought down.
Not
up,
moving
everybody?
up in the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that.
No. I mean, we're moving up the world if you consider our special guest on the couch today.
We do. Let's get a shot of the couch real quick. We got Mama Sue Peck in the room, in the studio, on the couch. How you doing, Mom?
I'm good.
She can't. She doesn't want to wear a headset, so I'm gonna make her talk anyway.
She's got a Champs Lunch shirt on
She
there.
does. She had like a very. I mean, she looks beautiful. She always does. But she had like a really nice like blouse and skirt on. And I was like, Mom, you ready to go for the show? And she's like, Yeah, but I want to wear. She like wanted to be on brand, you know. I was like, But you look so nice. And she was
Right.
like, No, I want to wear a Schmodown shirt.
Yeah.
So Champs Lunch, I figured, was very appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, we are covering Scott Pilgrim versus the World today, directed by Edgar Wright, released in 2010. This is a movie that a lot of people have loved and talked about us doing for a long time. Special shout out to James Spence, who is basically managing and running all the back end of Action Industries. He's the guy who watches what everybody's doing. This is a request of his to do Scott Pilgrim versus the World. He loves this movie, and so we're doing this for you, James. Also because we love it. I have such a connection to this movie, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one because you and I both I'd only seen this movie within the last 12 months or even maybe 8 months, and you'd only seen it within the last, 5 years? Or no,
Last year was the first
last year was the first time, right?
Yeah.
So also within the last 12 months. But you know these comics inside and out.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny things. There's a lot of stories to tell about this movie, so we're going to get into all of that. But if you guys want to follow along with the conversation, you can find me personally at Ben Bape Media, and you can find our Twitter thing at Team Action Show.
You guys can find me at Andrew Guy. You can find my mother at Sue Peck.
And on the couch, looking lovely. And we've also got a couple other places. There's two Facebook groups. One is for the Action Army. It's the fans of the now defunct Team Action and the Movie Trivia Schmodown. There's also All About Action, which is the place to kind of get all of our information there. It's another Facebook group. And Action Industries, which now is the place that we put everything together. So
Yes.
Drew and I have been working our butt off along with this group of about a dozen people you guys are just doing the best job working with us to just bring this thing to the world. And it's awesome to see every week a few more subscribers, a few more followers. There's news posts every day on Instagram. There's news on Twitter.
It's absolutely unbelievable the work that this team does with us, and honestly, they keep us on track. Like I think it was 2 days ago, someone was like, "Hey, where's this thing?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be up already." I was like,
yeah.
"Oh shit, I need to." Sorry.
Yeah,
I'll get it to you.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of moving parts. I mean, the truth be told, we could not do it without you guys. So it's really exciting. Last shout out is we have some new patrons on the Patreon. Jim W. and DJ Snacks.
Boom.
We salute you. Team Action. Patreon. That's patreon.com/Team Action. We'll talk about some details there a little later. Coming up today on the show, we are going to be talking about the individual rankings of all the Edgar Wright films. We are going to be doing an Over Siege, Under Siege, Properly Sieged on Michael Cera. Favorite directors of the future is a thing we're doing on Action, guys. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And so I think before anything else, before we just jump straight into Thesis Statement and all the other fun things on the show, we kind of have a special thing to share.
Yeah, this is incredible. And if you guys go and you check out Action Industries on Instagram, you'll see that I posted a bit of a story before Ben got here. I was too excited. We have a good friend. His name is Nick Gilmore. He's supported Team Action. He supported Ben and I individually. He's just been an incredible individual. I actually believe Nick is in the chat right now. And he sent us these amazing coins. One side says Team Guy. The other side says Team Bateman. These are based off of the designs that Janine the Machine did. And we'll obviously post pictures of these so that you can see them a little better.
They're so beautiful.
They're so incredible. They're heavy. They're weighted. They've got the color there of the explosions. And he's also sending 100 more golden ones. That Ben and I we can't believe it. My mom already stole 2 of them without asking. I don't blame her for it. You know, she deserves at least that. And he sent a little message. And I just want to read it really quickly just because Nick is an amazing guy. He sent both of us trophies, these coins. This is all just stuff that he does because he loves us and we love him. So, fellas, good work at the free-for-all. Ben, it was great to meet you. Drew, sorry I missed you. Snickers, that's your fault. So here are 95 of the first set. The next set gets here next week, supposedly. I think they'll be a little nicer looking. I'm assuming you've seen the pics. We have. We're very excited. I'm also setting the inspiration for these, perhaps a connection to the Top Gun movies. I was an F-14 maintainer in the Navy. This is one of the squadrons I was in. There should be one for each of you. See ya in Houston, respectfully, your old pal, Nick, a.k.a. the Shiznick. And what it is it says F9F, F3H. I wish that I was, like, better at understanding or, like, breaking this down. There's probably a better way to say it.
I wish you were too.
The bottom, it says anytime, baby. On the back, it says Fighter Squadron 21, World War II, KW, VW, GW. I wish I knew what all of that meant, but I'm so incredibly thankful for you to send these, send the inspiration. Ben and I cannot salute you enough. So, Nick Gilmore, we love you, and we salute you.
We salute you, man. Yeah, it was terrific to meet you. And seriously, Houston is going to be such an unbelievable...
Oh, Jeff Graham doing all... Oh, so that's another announcement. It's the last announcement we have. Jeff Graham just pulled up the Instagram feed there. Thank you so much for doing that. Ben, Marissa actually kind of moved on from the company, moving on to more endeavors.
Yes.
And we're very sad to say goodbye to her.
We are sad to say goodbye. We've worked with Marissa for a very long time. She's going off to chase some of the things that she's really passionate about, and she's excited about that. We wish her all the best in obviously what she's doing there, and she's done so much work on the show with us for such a long time. Obviously, you know, this backdrop picture is created by her. The concept there, engineered probably over 100 shows, I would guess. And yeah, we will miss her dearly, but...
Yeah, there we go. But we have an amazing person in the booth, someone that Ben and I have been friends with for years, someone who I've worked with very personally many, many times in and out of the studio. It's Jeff Graham. You guys already know him. He's an amazing, amazing guy. He's an incredibly talented writer. He hosts shows here at AfterBuzz and Popcorn as well, so make sure you give him a follow. Jeff, where can the people find you?
Yo, guys, thanks so much. I'm so stoked for the show. You guys know I've been a fan for a long time. If you guys want to find me online, you can do that at Jeffrey C. Graham. And the good news is Marissa still will be doing Anatomy of a Movie. So you guys can still catch her on the network.
Great.
She's just not producing.
Excellent. Yeah, so guys, go catch Marissa Serafini on at Anatomy of a Movie. We're going to bring her on the show for an official goodbye. But that is enough housekeeping. Let's get into business. Let's get into Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
That sounds weird.
100. Let's get into Scott.
Let's not get into Scott.
What we're going to start out here with, guys, is we're going to start out with Thesis statement. This is the biggest, boldest thought you have about the film. This is the thing you would bring up in a conversation about this movie, as this movie has come up many times at parties, because people love this movie. Mm-hmm. It is a true cult classic. You would bring this up and you would say, here's the thing about Scott Pilgrim. You'd share your thought, and then you'd leave the party.
Yep.
What is that thought? What is your biggest, boldest thought about this film?
So my biggest, boldest thought about this film is this is the most approachable comic book movie out right now. Now, I know that seems crazy, and the reason I'm going to say it is just because there's so many of these Marvel and DC superhero comic book movies.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when Lord of the Rings was really popular, or kind of how I feel about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
At some point, if you're one of those people that just didn't care and doesn't care and wants to continue not caring,
right,
and every week you hear about a new damn superhero movie, you're like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I'm over Marvel. I'm over Harry Potter. I'm over Lord of the Rings. I don't care about The Hobbit. This is a film that if you go, look, I know you've seen way too many trailers. This Endgame, this Infinity War thing. You don't know who any of these people are. Comic books have a place in film. There's a reason why. And this film, I think, is a great one to show. Like, for instance, I could show this to my mom. It's got a beautiful love story in it. It's got fun action in it. It's cute. It's quirky. It's silly. It's so well directed and edited. The visuals in it are so stimulating, and the movie moves at such a great pace. I think if you're one of those people, and I know that you and I have both run into them, that is just like, I'm over it. I don't want to watch another superhero comic book, Batman flying, whatever it is. I want real movies. You go, well, I got a comic book movie for you that's going to change your tune.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Absolutely. And, I'll jump on the back of that, and I will say that my thesis statement on this is that this is the most ambitious comic book adaptation ever made.
I love it.
And there's some really interesting ones, like Infinity War or Logan are like two that I think you could really point to as being pretty ambitious comic book adaptations. But the reality is, like, Infinity War, the MCU is the ambitious part. Making Infinity War once you've made the other movies is not the ambitious part anymore. It's just a giant epic, right? Or if you look at Logan, it's like, that's great. It's amazing that you guys make an R-rated movie, but again, it's telling a story in a very traditional way. This is this weird comic book that, like, when you read it, is so charming and it's so lovely, it's so wonderful. As a director, looking at it, you either have to say, I'm gonna shrink this down, I'm gonna make this really simple and basic, or I'm gonna do what Edgar Wright decided to do, which is like, I'm gonna literally try to take this off the page and put this into a movie and do it as close as I can to have the feeling and the tone and the jokes and everything as close as I can. And he does it.
Now, as any of the stuff that he puts in the film with, like, the quick cuts, or like the almost like the slapstick like physical humor or like the thuds and the wuds and all that. That's all directly from the comics.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like he just had this like tonality to what he was doing. The writer Brian Lee O'Malley, who created Scott Pilgrim, when he made it, that was like, it's got this like, it's so hard to put it into words, but it's like that like mid 90s Nintendo, everything is kind of like emo nerdy romance, like one up.
Right.
It's just all of it. It just feels like this like adorable cartoon at all times. Everything at all times feels like just like cute and warm and fuzzy and lovable and like,
Yeah.
but awesome. And
And for some reason, it still feels like it's grounded in some sort of reality that we care about the stakes in the film. You know what I mean?
totally. And like, I mean, just the interesting thing is Scott Pilgrim is 6 books long. It might even be 7 now that I think about it, but I think it's 6. And each one is a digest, you know, it's like, you know, yay thick. And they would come out every year or two. It took like something like 7 years for all the books to come out. And I like you're watching scenes in this movie, and those scenes are cutting quickly to one another. But some of the scenes in the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that's the end of book 4.
Right. You were talking specifically about when they go and see Envy, and you see Brandon for the what's his last name? Ralph?
Brandon Routh.
Yeah, Brandon Routh. You see him
Todd's
for
a
the
vegan.
first time. Yeah, the vegan. And you were saying at some point, either when they come up or when he's about to fight or after he throws Scott the first time, there's a cut in the book there. And that's a year-long cut.
I think, yeah, if I remember correctly, like the Clash at Demon Head come on stage maybe because you heard about Envy Adams a lot at that point, and I think like you see her silhouette and then like the book ends maybe.
Oh, God.
Like there's like stuff that happens where you're like, wow, and I can remember reading this comic, and this is one of my favorite comics of all time. So this movie really, really was special to me. Though in the weirdest way possible, I avoided the movie. I like.
Oh, of course.
It was, the comic book was so special to me. I like just didn't want to watch it, which is why it took me almost a decade to watch this movie.
Yeah, and during this is the other thing we forgot to mention, guys. We did a watch along this last Sunday for Scott Pilgrim, so that was the thing where we had over 20 people watching the film with us because they knew we were going to cover it this week. And the reason I want to mention this is because there was it was about your the feeling. I'm going to write feeling really quick on film. And the only reason I'm going to turn real quick is because we're doing another watch along in about 3 weeks for Infinity War for our episode on Endgame.
It's
so
Infinity Wars.
Infinity Wars, excuse me. I've gotten so good at saying it now. So guys, at the $10 level and above on our Patreon, go check it out if you want to join the watch along. It was super, super fun. A lot of really cool behind the scenes stuff. And you were saying that your feeling when it came out, you were pushing against it because it was so close to home. And then when you finally watched it, it was one of those like, that was good enough.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, right.
No, it's just, it wasn't that I was pushing against it. It was like that it came out, and it was in a moment when it came out, 2010, where I wasn't watching a lot of movies. I think
Right.
I've told you this before. There was about 4 years in my life, between maybe 5 years, like 2009, 2010 to like 2014 or so, where I just didn't watch that many movies. I like hadn't started in media yet, so I was still kind of like a musician and actor and modeling and stuff like that. And I hadn't gotten into this place in my life where I realized that talking about the things I loved is really the thing that gets me the most excited.
Yeah.
So obviously movies being something I grew up loving so much was an easy one to really recommit. And so there was a lot of movies that came out in that time period that I've had to catch up on. Namely, like Prisoners is a great example of a movie that I just didn't see when it came out. I had no
Did we
interest.
do that on the show?
Yeah.
We did, right? Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite movies ever made.
Yeah.
I like watch scenes from that movie on YouTube sometimes.
Like, you mean ones of Jackman freaking out?
Yes.
That's all it is, right? Of just him
Jackman-
screaming?
Jackman in the car with Gyllenhaal screaming and bashing the
and hitting
dashboard.
the-
And I love Gyllenhaal. Hey. He's so good.
Their balance of energy is so amazing in that movie.
Unbelievable. God, I love that movie. So I kind of skipped this movie for that reason in 2010. And so here's the funny part.
No!
Yeah. And there's so much. I don't want to ramble too much, but I moved to LA in 2009. And I originally moved here the first time in 2005. And I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts for a year. And I was going to be an actor. So in 2009, I went to some acting classes and I met some people. And one of the people I met was this guy, Johnny Cruz, who is a good friend of ours. Johnny Cruz, some of you guys probably know Johnny because he's the voice of
Lucio.
Lucio in Overwatch. Johnny has a ton of fans now. He's been in a ton of movies.
Johnny's like pretty damn famous now.
Yeah, he was on, what was the show on El Rey? Matador.
Yeah.
He was one of the stars of Matador.
He's the voice of Jordan Cross. He's the voice in Hitman. I mean, he had the kid from Stranger Things like begging him for an autograph on his feed the other day. And anyway, so Johnny's a good friend of both of ours. Really happy for his success.
Yeah, Johnny, and I met Johnny in an acting class, and at the time in 2010, in January, I remember this distinctly. I had the 14 people I had met to that point in LA that were actors that I knew, and I was 21, meet me at an IHOP. And I had written this 3-page like memorandum that was the Untitled Actors Workshop, it was called. And the idea was that we were going to meet for 3 hours a week every week, and everybody had to bring something to the table. And it was a leave your ego at the door type of experience where we were all going to kind of train each other. And so Johnny was going to teach improv for an hour because he had a lot of experience in improv, and we were going to do scene study. We were going to do audition prep with like a camera. Somebody would play the role of casting director or send out sides from our auditions.
You told me about this. I thought it was incredible. It was a really great group.
We did this for a year. We met almost 50 times every week for 3 hours. And in that time, we birthed the idea of making a short together. So Johnny wrote this short called Tetsuo. And at the time, Tetsuo was heavily inspired by Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim had just come out. Johnny was really inspired. He wanted to make something like this. Johnny had directed a movie before, so he had a lot of experience doing this. And so over the course of a few months, we shot Tetsuo, and I starred in it. I was this little skinny 21-year-old kid, like no muscle on my body, very little experience, and we never ended up releasing it because the visual effects didn't get finished.
Right.
I have a version of it that I've seen that I still have a link to that's actually cut together. It's a 20-minute thing.
I have to see this.
I play guitar, I sing in it.
I feel like I have seen part of it.
Maybe. I only got it last year for the first time. I only actually saw it.
Okay.
Almost a decade later. And so
That's Hollywood.
But I remember like we just did a lot of work on this, and like so much of it was in reference to Scott Pilgrim. He was so inspired by the kind of fairy tale nature. That's what he wanted to make. And so at the time I remember thinking I should watch this, but still I just didn't want to. And so it's taken me 10 years to watch this movie.
And like you said, when you did watch it, you were satisfied enough.
It has a lot of what I wanted.
Yeah.
It's funny. A lot of the jokes are great callbacks. So
really
there's my story.
Really, yeah. And I love that story. And I really need to see Tetsuo because that would just be so enjoyable for me.
I tried to get Johnny on the show. I texted him last week, and he was super excited to come on, but he went to Australia yesterday.
Yeah, I know. That dude, he's one of the guys you and I talked about for years. We're like, he's going to break through at some point.
Yeah.
He's just too talented and too good looking and too good of a guy. So really happy for Johnny. James's movie reviews, the very first time he's joined the live chat. Very, very happy to have you here. Liam Gilpin said, all good, James. I listened to the show for 2 years before joining the group chat and or the live chat. So very happy to have both you guys here. We are going to be moving through the show. That was our thesis statement. One of the other thesis statements I saw in there that was something that we'd said on the show was that this is the best video game adaptation ever into a film for a video game that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that one. So talking about these stars.
We have to do fist pump.
Fist pump. Oh my gosh.
Fist pump moment is that moment something happens in the movie. You look around, you're like, are you watching this right now? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You're so pumped. You want to call your buddy. You want to say, cue it up at this minute. Right now, you got to watch this scene. It's going to give you everything you need. It's going to give you the nectar of life.
Did you know that we had a literal example of our fist pump moment where we're sitting there watching it? We both looked at each other and kind of smiled. Do you remember that?
You're talking about in the watch along?
Yeah.
No, what was it?
It was when he gets the sword.
Yeah,
it was when he got the sword because I didn't know what my actual thesis was. There was like a handful of moments that I really, really loved, but it was in that moment that I realized I was like, that's the actual definition of the fist pump that we've called for years and years. Is where you're sitting there, you're watching it, we're like,
the power of love.
Oh shit! And we like looked at each other and like, yeah, this is a cool moment. Yeah, that was it. That was the one, and it was like you said, kind of corny and kind of cheesy and video gamey, but it was perfect.
It's perfect. And Schwartzman's such a fuck.
The other thesis.
I hate to use the word.
Oh, but it's the only appropriate word for him. And the other thing that we were talking about, I was like, if that dude was maybe 6 inches taller and could put on 20 pounds a little easier of muscle, he would have been one of Hollywood's greatest villains.
Yeah, he'd be a great villain.
He's just so evil.
He's so evil. He's great. Gideon, he's awesome in this movie.
Such a great name.
Yeah, it's sweet. So what's your fist bump moment?
That was it. I just said it.
You are using that as your fist bump moment. I am
literally using that because that was my one. Billy Belford says anytime Kieran Culkin says anything or does anything, which I love. He's really great. That could be my other fist pump is when he's making out with Anna Kendrick's boyfriend at the end of the show. He's like, God damn it, Wallace, again?
I think my fist pump moment is probably the Daniel Patel song and dance. When he starts, because he's like so ridiculous.
His song is so bad.
And you're already uncomfortable with how cringy he is, and then he starts doing the song, and you're like, what is this?
Do you think that's one of those moments in like Hollywood where you're like, he does such a great job pulling it off, and he's so embarrassing that people are like, we just don't want him in our movie.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He cost himself jobs.
Yeah, because he was like so perfect at being that bad. You're like, that guy's too cringeworthy.
He's too. I don't know. That's how he is in the comic too. I remember these. He's just like that.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember if there's a song. Like I don't remember if they try to do a song in the comic book. They might though.
The song is so horrible.
Yeah.
Like all the rest of the X's have sweet songs and moments.
Yeah.
What about Lucas Lee calling action on his own movie?
Oh, that might be the fist bump for me. Actually,
very excited about
he's fantastic. He's so good, and it's Chris Evans too, and like such a great Chris Evans moment because he's like not famous anymore. He's just about to be famous again. Captain America: The First Avenger came out the next year, so this probably shot in 2009. I'll bet you he shot Captain America: The First Avenger about a year later.
Right.
And so when he shot his Lucas Lee moment in this, he's 2 years after Fantastic Four: The Silver Surfer. He's a year after Sunshine.
You had said this is his absolute lowest point.
He's like probably shooting this in a moment where like they're like, yeah, Chris Evans, you can put him in like a B role here. You can't really lead a movie.
We'll pay him like probably like the bottom part of a scale or like middle scale.
We'll
for
give
the
him
day.
$100,000 or something because he was Human Torch.
Yep.
He gets some money. You know?
And hopefully maybe he'll bring in a couple people if they see his name,
but
like that type of thing.
He had like been in some bad movies to that point. He had like kind of had his moment, and his star had kind of gone off a cliff. And it's funny because like obviously he's now one of the biggest stars in the world.
Far.
Yeah. Did you read his Hollywood? Was it Hollywood Reporter that he did? He did a
Yeah,
full.
it was Reporter. I read it.
Yeah, he did a full article like a week ago talking about everything, talking about like the rumors of him retiring from acting, talking about Trump, talking about playing Captain America, talking about.
Was there something with him and Trump?
He's just a very staunch like Trump
Conservative?
No, he's incredibly against Trump.
Oh, I was gonna say now I hate Chris Evans.
He's super vocal on Twitter about it. He
Okay.
goes after him all the time.
That's great.
He's like and talking about like directing. He wants to direct more, and he also talks about when he took the role, when he took Cap, and just like with that moment, and he turned it down first, and they had to come back to him and like really push him to take the role.
I can't believe that he turned down Cap.
Yeah, he just didn't want to. He just didn't. I think he didn't want to commit to 7 movies.
And like, Matt's told us many times. Our good friend Matt Haggerty, who's the second AD on there, was telling us many times that Evans is one of the few people that is constantly working to expand his brand.
Yeah,
and is also always working very politely with production to work on other projects around the scheduling.
Yeah.
Whereas there's other actors on there that are just like, I'm gonna go do this thing, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
Right. Yeah, he seems like a super professional dude. He's one of the people that I would be really excited to interview.
I think I'd probably get a little geeked out and starstruck if I saw him or RDJ or Hemsworth at this point.
Yeah, all three. They're larger than life. And with Evans,
and they all seem like such great dudes.
I think I would nerd out more probably for Evans than either of the other two at this point because there's like a weight to his like level of good and purity as that character that's affected me so much now.
I just like
have a giant crush on Hemsworth. Is that
no,
what it is?
I just like works like RDJ is like me. He's like my spirit animal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with Dastardly, he just seems like perfect. So those are our fist pump moments. Is that your? Did you give yours officially?
I think actually probably Chris Evans calling action on himself is pretty sweet.
You talked about it for like 10 minutes during the watch along.
It's such a good moment.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Action. All right, guys. So moving on to star profiles here, we got Michael Cera's 3 most recent films. He did Youth and Revolt in 2009, Year One in 2009, and Paper Heart in 2009. So this is
his moment for sure.
He could do no wrong. He was in everything.
Superbad, if I remember correctly, is 07.
Yeah.
So like that's. Like what did Michael Cera get famous?
Was he
from?
in Nick and Nora's too? That was him too.
Yeah, and that's probably 2007.
Probably Arrested Development, right? Would that have been his?
Yes.
Arrested is his breakthrough.
Yeah.
For sure, and that's early 2000s. That's like 03, 04, 05.
And then from that, it was super bad.
Yeah, so this is really his moment, and like he's I'm sure he's getting pitched a bunch of scripts, and Year One is with Jack Black, if I remember correctly, right?
Yep. That's like the medieval movie or the.
I vaguely remember Youth and Revolt. I don't remember Paper Heart. This is when he got a little overexposed. Honestly, this happens a lot, but then he really redeemed himself with This Is the End.
Yeah, so great. You need to do that. You need to do that role. Like that is so opposite of what you ever play.
Yeah, right.
Look at Cruz do it. Look at Evans do it. Look at Sarah do it. It works.
RDJ, man, he did it as Cyrus. No, it's Cyrus. Osiris.
Is that in The Soloist?
No, in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Let's see, his best role is This Is the End. Yeah, Will McLean, one of the action industry's board members, couldn't agree more. So Mary Elizabeth Weinstead. Wines. So she was in Make It Happen. Oh no, we're going back. Death Proof in 2007. Live Free or Die Hard in 2007, which we will do on the show eventually.
She's the daughter that Justin Long goes after.
Yeah, and I love that movie. Timothy Olyphant's great in it. And Make It Happen in 2008. Her career is pretty lackluster for how talented she is, in my opinion.
I always, like, when she first was coming out, I mixed her up a lot with
some 60-year-old woman because of her name.
No, with Emmy Rossum. She's so like similar looking and feeling to Emmy Rossum.
That's interesting,
right? Because Emmy Rossum's the daughter in Mystic River, if I recall, right? Not Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I like her a lot. I think is she. How you were saying during the watch along that both of these actors are about 95% of their characters in the book?
The whole entire cast, actually. This is one of the weirdest experiences for
Except
me.
for Blake Lively. That's the one thing, right?
Well, I do think Envy Adams, when you look at her in the comic, she just should be Blake Lively.
Right,
she just like looks like Blake Lively before she was even a thing.
Brie does kill it.
She's great. Yeah, she's fantastic. But I think the whole cast, it's like one of those situations where I was so attached to the characters and the way they feel in the comic that I don't know who you could have really cast in any of these roles that would have been better than who they got.
Right.
They're all kind of perfect. It's just they all just feel like they're just a little bit off. Like, you know that feeling when you look at a character in a comic book you've watched for a long time and you see like the first image of the actor and you're like, oh yeah, that just looks like that actor with a wig and a suit on.
Right.
That doesn't look like the comic book character. That just looks like, and you know, we've gotten to a point now where movies are the better representation in a lot of cases of those characters.
Like Nick Fury.
So it doesn't feel that way anymore.
Right.
But this still had that feeling for me when I watched it, which was just like none of these characters feel the way just because I can tell that's Michael Cera just being Michael Cera. That's not Scott Pilgrim.
So do you think it's because of well, with her, it sounds like it's more of just like a casting and your closeness to the product, whereas with Michael Cera, it's like a famous actor doing the thing.
They're just cartoon characters, and you can't do that. Like,
yeah.
There's no. It's not like we have 10 Scott Pilgrim movies for me to get used to it. We just have one Scott Pilgrim movie, and they condense 7 years of comic books into 113 minutes or whatever.
Right.
Like it's just hard. It's hard to do. So I don't know though. It's pretty fantastic. So we're talking about Mary Elizabeth Winstead's career. I think the more interesting question here is how do you feel about Michael Cera? Is Michael Cera overrated? Is he underrated? Is he properly rated?
Well, I'm gonna hop in here really quickly and say we had our very first general hangout today with Denuzzo and Belford chimed in about what they felt about Michael Cera, and they both actually said he was properly rated. And the reason why, now Denuzzo had his reasoning saying that he used to be overrated, and probably around the time that this came out.
Yep.
And then now he's kind of fallen into a place where he's more comfortable taking roles that he should, things like This Is the End, stuff that he's not oversaturating himself. And Belford kind of echoed that sentiment in saying that he stays in his own lane.
Yeah.
And that's what he really likes about him is he doesn't try to do things, just because he did Scott Pilgrim versus the World doesn't mean that he's an action star, and he knows that. And I think, honestly, he's underrated, dude.
I'm in the same boat.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
go. Why?
I think he's underrated because I like that in 2019, I still feel like Michael Cera could be in Superbad 2 tomorrow, and I'd be there. I would like drop everything for my press screening.
Right.
I'd be so excited to watch that movie. I still believe in his ability to be funny, his ability to be endearing. Like, he's shown me enough moments and enough things that are super memorable that I'm willing to like throw out all the other shit. And like the other thing too is like he can turn it on to do something a little different when he needs to. But he doesn't ask you that much. Like you're not asked that much when you go see a Michael Cera movie. You're not like,
no.
You're not asked to, like, okay, for instance, if Michael Cera had gotten the JGL role as Lincoln's son in 2012, like if you're putting him in roles like that,
right,
you're dealing with a whole different can of worms. Michael Cera having to play himself effectively, doing his best Tobey Maguire impression in Molly's Game, I'm willing to watch him do that, and he does a great job.
He does a great job.
Like he just does enough with what he's given that I'm still a big fan, and I think the world kind of thinks of him as like he peaked and he had his moment. I think he's still total star.
I couldn't agree more on every single thing that you've said. On every level, I'm kind of shocked because I was 100% one of these people that was just like, I'm done with you, bro. Like, I love so much that you've done, but like the whole time you were talking, I kept thinking about Jonah Hill, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and Michael Cera. as dads.
Yeah.
Like in Superbad 2.
Oh, man.
Oh my! And I just started laughing. Like I was just like chuckling in my
Superbad
head.
2 would be fantastic.
It would be so good.
And it would be hilarious because all those guys are still hilarious.
They're all so good and so famous. Bill Hader and Seth Rogen as the cops coming back. Like,
okay, so we did a show last week. I haven't gotten to talk about it much. The Beach Bum came out this last weekend.
oh, is that the new McConaughey movie?
Yeah. And it's this. I think I talked about it on the show last week for a second, maybe. McConaughey plays a world famous poet by the name of Moondog. He has sex with everything that moves, does all the drugs, cheats on his wife. It's a ridiculous, weird stoner movie from Harmony Korine, who did like Spring Breakers and the Gummo and stuff like that. Anyway, point is, in the movie, which has a big cast, McConaughey's lawyer is played his agent, I believe, is played by Jonah Hill.
Yes.
Jonah Hill is not advertised in the movie. He's not on the poster, but he's in the movie a good amount.
So interesting because he's definitely an A-list star.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Jonah Hill, I don't know how he decided to do this, does the voice and accent that he does when he's playing Woody Harrelson in Pineapple Express 2 in This Is the End, when they're making their sequel movies in the house. And he's like, I was the one who invented the iPad.
Yeah.
I was a friend of Steve
He
Jobs.
just does that voice.
He's like basically just doing that character as Moondog's lawyer or his agent or something. And it's like so ridiculous. This movie is absurd.
Is it super bad?
I don't even know. I gave it above average because it's like way more interesting than a bad movie.
Right.
But like it's worth watching just for how silly he is.
That's pretty awesome.
But he's like, Moondog, I gotta get into it tonight at the club. He's like, you gotta give me some money, buddy. Like, I'm just like, what is this movie? How did you sign on to this?
Oh God, I kind of want to watch it just for the fact that he's in it now.
If you get really, really, really stoned, you'll enjoy it.
Okay. We both know I can do that. All right, so moving on to production development here. Edgar Wright obviously directed this. It was written by him and Michael Bacall. A film adaptation of the comics was proposed following the release of the first volume. Wright became attached to the project and filming again in 2009 in Toronto. The film premiered after a panel discussion at SDCC in July of 2010, and then it released wide here in August. Now, Edgar Wright is kind of an inspiration behind the segment we want to do on The Action Guys, which is, I believe that he is one of the most promising directors of this generation right now.
Yeah.
And I think he could be one of the next greats, maybe. And so that kind of inspired a conversation we want to have on The Action Guys.
Yeah. So Edgar Wright, I think we both agree is in that group. And actually, if you guys want to see us kind of talk about that, that's going to be this week's episode of The Action Guys. It's going to premiere this Friday on our Patreon, patreon.com/teamaction, as well as fully audio on the Collider Movie Talk feed, and then it'll be public on video to everybody on the Action Industry's YouTube next Tuesday, which you guys should check out. Subscribe to that right now because we're putting out content for free there every week.
Yeah, we're going to start doing giveaways on there as well.
Yeah, but I think that I'm with you. So the question on Edgar Wright is, what are his three best films?
Right.
And I'm going to jump in and say I have never seen At World's End, and aside from I've watched half of Hot Fuzz,
right,
and then I've seen the ending and scenes of Hot Fuzz. But watching the whole movie, that's on my list of 100 movies this year. So it's probably coming up real soon that I'll be watching it start to finish. But I know Hot Fuzz very well. I've at least watched, I would say, probably the movie in its entirety in broken up pieces.
Yeah, and I think really there's only 4 films that are always in contention for his top 3.
Yeah.
And that's Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Baby Driver, and Scott Pilgrim.
Yep.
So it's really which one do you eliminate from the list?
And how do you rank them?
And how do you rank them? And so do you want to go 3, 2, 1 together, countdown, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I think that's fine for me.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. I think I'll go... Well, let me think. Yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah, so my number 3 is actually Scott Pilgrim.
Okay.
It is 100%. I love Scott Pilgrim. I think that we were talking during the watch long about the other directors that could do this. Now, I definitely think other directors could do it because you said that so much of it is already in the comics, like so much of the visual cues. Now, another director could have completely botched it and ruined the film.
Yeah.
I think Edgar Wright was perfect for it. But it is interesting. I love his visuals. It's interesting that so much of it was already in the comics from this, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go number 3, Hot Fuzz. Okay. I feel like I know that movie pretty well. It has a direct reference to Point Break that I really love. It's funny. I love how it plays with the action genre. There's so many of the tropes that we've referenced so many times that are in that movie.
Yeah.
It's really funny. And I think actually probably of his movies, I don't know if we'll ever do Shaun. It's possible, but I know we'll do Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is like... You know the movie I just keep coming up with that I actually can't believe we haven't done yet is Pineapple Express. That's the movie. Every time I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah. Like we didn't even include that in our top 5 action comedies episode. For whatever reason, that movie like just over our head every time.
It's so weird. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this is so great, and I never want to watch it again.
It's
and then,
so good.
and I'll convince myself to watch it, and I'm like, God, this is so great.
Yeah.
And I never want to watch it. It's so weird.
I love that movie.
So number 2 is going to be controversial. It's Baby Driver.
You put it number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, because you love Scott, really.
Well, Scott's 3.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you love Sean. That's
Yeah, I
what
do.
you say.
Yeah, you know me.
You put Baby Driver 2. I put Scott Pilgrim 2.
Yep.
And then I put Baby Driver 1.
Of course.
And you put Shaun of the Dead 1.
And I put Shaun of the Dead 1.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead is a movie that really hit a lot of people generationally at the right moment. I know Dan Murrell, famously of Screen Junkies and also the current singles champion in the movie Trivia Schmodown.
Right.
I think that's the movie that got him into like wanting to be a movie guy.
Really?
It's either him or it's Chris Stuckman, but one of those two guys who are like gigantic YouTube personalities reference that movie as the movie. Like it's the one.
I love it. I think it's so perfect. I mean, Denuzzo even said he loves, the Queen in there. I think it's so well acted and cast. I love the way it moves. I think it's the perfect horror comedy adaptation. It came out at the right time when zombies were huge. And it's just like, that was the first time I ever saw Simon Pegg and Nick Frost on screen together. And I was like, oh my God, these guys are geniuses. They're so great. So that is, And then Baby Driver, I'll let you take because it's your number 1.
Yeah, I go Baby Driver number 1. I think it is Merle, says Belford.
Yeah.
I think I've heard him say that before. As great as I think Scott Pilgrim is, and it's wonderful, a lot of the chances that he takes on Scott Pilgrim that work so well, he takes even bigger chances in Baby Driver. And Baby Driver is...
And there's nothing to pull from.
Baby Driver is such a hard movie to execute. And aside from like the last 20 minutes, which I don't particularly like...
Gets a little crazy.
Yeah, that movie in general...
Baby!
Like the first 10 minutes of Baby Driver is so good.
Oh, it's so perfect.
It's just, that movie is just great. It's got so much comedy. It's like, I mean, that movie is wonderful. Baby Driver, I haven't gone back to rewatch yet, but I remember walking out of the theater being like, this is one of the best movies this year.
He just like, is Ansel Elgort just filming like 30 things right now and not doing, like, it seems ludicrous to me that he hasn't been in another starring role since that came out.
Yeah, he's like would you say that Dane DeHaan is the poor man's Ansel Elgort at this point?
God, yeah. I really hope that Ansel's career doesn't go that way.
He's about to be Tony in the Spielberg West Side Story, though. So that'll be huge.
Dane or Ansel?
Ansel is.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes, I was just going to say, because he's also such a talented singer, it makes no sense that he wouldn't blow up.
Yeah, he's really, really good.
Big fan.
Yeah, huge fan. So that's going to be our top 3, guys. Share your top 3. If you're watching this or listening to this, leave it in the comments below here on YouTube. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, and really quickly, I just want to give a quick shout out to Michael Blankenship working for Action Industries. He's in the chat right now as Action Industries. He's going around responding to all the comments and all the videos that we're in. So if you are commenting about your top 3 list, you can guarantee that Michael will respond on this chat in this YouTube. So leave your comment below so that we can get some interaction going. I think we can skip over most of Edgar Wright's career. I think we've talked about him a lot on this show.
And we're going to do quite a bit of that on the next show.
Yes.
As we actually do that.
So critical and box office. This movie, someone actually said that this was the most undeserved box office bomb, was their thesis. So this cost $60 million to make. It was opened August 13th of 2010. It grossed 31 domestic and 16 foreign for a grand total of $47 million, losing $12.3 million from its production budget. It opened at 10. I believe it was at number 1 there. But yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's a weird. It's just it's like one of those. I don't know how you can really even. It's like it's a midsummer movie, so it probably went up against something pretty good that same weekend, I would guess. Jeff, can you check that out for us? Actually.
Yeah, I'm on it.
I would love to know what Scott opened up against, or even just what was in theaters at the time. If it's 2010 in the summer, that's Iron Man 2 would be the only MCU movie that might have been in theaters at the same time.
It could have been that moment where everyone, is this the moment in the career where everyone was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm done with Michael Cera, dude. Get him out of my face.
Maybe. I mean, and the promotion of this movie, there was a bunch of movies around this few years that were promoted with this like cute, quaint, emo, like literally.
Right,
Nick and Nora's Infinite
yeah.
Playlist is the marketing that's like this movie is sharing, and a lot of that kind of feeling that I think they're going after a certain age demographic and like interest, and it might have just felt kind of canned by the time this came out.
Yeah, because from 2007 you go Superbad, Juno, Nick and Nora, Extreme Movie, Paper Heart, Year One, Youth and Revolt, and Scott Pilgrim. So there's like 3-4 movies in there that are roughly the same tonality, and then after that he actually doesn't do another real or like a full movie until 2012. So I think this movie is literally the moment. It's a box office bomb, and then Michael Cera's done.
So studios are like, let's not put this one out there.
He doesn't do another movie. He does The End of Love in 2012, which I don't even know what it is. He guests on The Simpsons. He does another short. He guests on, or he's got 6 episodes on Burning Love. Like, he literally just falls off.
You said that's by 2013 he's doing that?
I mean, dude, 2010 is when it ends. And then it's Drunk History, Brie Larson video, a short, and then The End of Love. He literally just
When does
stops.
This Is the End come out? 2014?
I think so.
2013?
14? Yeah, 2013, yeah.
So that's his comeback.
He just disappears for 3 years, and This Is the End is his comeback, and then he goes and he does, I mean, it's not quite a comeback yet, right? Because he's still not doing anything.
He's interesting. Like that and Molly's Game.
Sausage Party, yeah.
Wow, interesting.
So he's fighting to come back right now. I heard he was pretty good in Lego, the Lego movie, Lego Batman.
Okay, that's the only Lego movie I haven't watched. I've watched the other two.
Go. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so moving on to critical, this movie's got a 7.5 out of 10. Oh, Jeff, did you figure out what it opened up
Yeah,
against?
the chat had my back here as they accurately identified The Expendables came out the same weekend.
Oh, and what did it make?
I mean, that ended up grossing around 300 million. But also Inception had come out 2 weekends before, too.
Yeah, so that's a holdover.
So this comes out and it's just like,
Yeah.
no chance in hell.
Let's see Inception again.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
7.5 on IMDb, which I think is kind of appropriate. I'd maybe give it a little bit more points.
Yeah.
Tomato meter 81, audience 83 on Rotten Tomatoes. How do you feel about all those?
Those are, I think, pretty correct. I think like 80 is probably about where this movie, 79, 80 is probably where this movie deserves to live.
Yeah.
It's like definitely above average, like a very good movie. I just gave Us a 7.9, and I think that's like about what I'd give it, like right around 8.
Do you feel better about that film now that a week's passed?
Us?
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 7.9 or 8 is a really good review. Like, for people who watch or listen or follow me on Twitter and see my movie reviews, I review things on a scale of 1 to 10, with 5 acting as an average. So it's like gets confusing for people because in school an A would be 100%, right? So if a D would be 60%, right? Which means that if you get down to 40, it's an F. But you don't get a G or an H when you're grading on the scale. There's no such thing. So if you're using 10 points, 5 is the middle and 10s are like impossibly perfect, which means The Godfather is a 10. I just reviewed Pretty Woman for the first time. That's a 10. That movie's perfect.
I think it's so crazy you gave it a 10.
That movie is flawless.
It's so good.
But like a movie that gets an 8 is a really good movie.
Yeah.
Like any movie that's 7 or higher is I'm giving you a strong recommendation to
Go
see this
watch
movie.
this movie.
Like I don't give movies over 7 if I'm like, yeah, it's pretty average. I
Right.
give a 5 an average. A 6 is still above average. So like that's what I mean is I think like this movie getting a 79 or an 80 makes it a pretty strong movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite line?
It's probably the Chris Evans line, calling action on himself.
Action.
Yeah, that's really sweet. I love that one. I love a lot of Todd's lines when he doesn't realize that chicken parm isn't vegan.
Yeah,
I love a lot of what Wallace Wells has to say. I love when Scott's like when he's like bread makes you fat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great one. God, what do I think? I think okay, there's 2 of them. There's the one where he plays the quick roulette in his mind and he goes, I gotta pee on her.
Yeah.
Because it's like between I gotta pee and don't tell her. And he says I gotta pee on her or something, which is really funny. And then the other one I loved was when he's like, were you at a party, blah, blah, blah? And she's like, oh, were you the Pac-Man guy? He's like, no, that guy sucked. I was the other guy. I love that line.
Great delivery. That's where you're like, oh, this kid's a star.
Exactly. He has the greatest like awkward delivery in maybe like in America in the last 20 years or something. Like he is that guy. Him and Steve Carell, like that's where they came from, was awkward comedy on Arrested Development and in The Office.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like if you watch like a lot of movies, a lot of TV, and you're a performer at all, you watch that and that seems really easy. And to some people it is really natural. But you also watch people who try to do that and aren't good at it.
Yeah.
And it's very bad. And you're like, oh, I get it. So to be a really good performer like that's dialed. That comic timing is like, you've been working on television for like 15 years already.
Exactly. And it is a very, very specifically television trait because that is what television is. It's set up and knocked down over and over and over. You got to hit these jokes. You've only got 22 minutes, you know? So really hats off to him. So AMA question this week, guys. We do a competition every single weekend. Richard, Eric Jarvie, and James Spence doing a great job of organizing those. On Saturdays, at some point, we run a contest for 24 hours. It's something to do with action movie anatomy, and you got to respond. So this question this week was, we did a watch-along for Scott Pilgrim versus the World. What are the other 4 watch-alongs that we've done? And John Coster...
I know the answer to this question?
Yeah, right? John Coster, who is is awesome. He's a dude that's he's actually doing this crazy art series on his Instagram.
Yeah.
He tags us in every day. He draws a picture based off of an AMA episode. I'm a horrible artist, so I salute you for doing that. He says, "What's your favorite musical performances in movies? Maybe a top 5 based off of Scott Pilgrim being kind of a musical." I don't know if we have a top 5 list, but we will talk about some movies that we really love and great musical performances. I'll start off with saying it's a weird one because she lip syncs, but in The Greatest Showman, Rebecca Ferguson,
Oh, it's incredible.
it's one of the greatest ever. I love it. Her voice is so powerful, and the woman who actually sings it, I believe she was on like You've Got Talent or something. She's also incredible, but that's one of my favorites.
I would say on the same subject of Greatest Showman, and it's actually not in the movie. It's the behind the scenes rehearsal performances that they did to sell the movie, where Jackman's in there with the kid from the last 5 years and Supergirl and what's her name? Whose name I can't think of right. Tessa, the girl who sings it in the movie.
Yeah.
she's unbelievable.
Yeah, I can't remember
just
her
can't
name
think of her
either.
name right now, but. He does this performance to get the movie sold, and it's just unreal.
Didn't he have like a surgery?
Yeah,
Like to remove melanoma on his nose or
Yeah,
something?
yep.
And like, so his doctor told him he can't sing.
But he didn't care.
And Jackman's sitting there watching it, and it's like going okay, right? And then
he
finally
has
he's
to
just
get
like,
into it.
fuck, I gotta get it. He goes, and he starts blood coming out of his nose or
From
whatever.
now on, it starts bleeding.
From now on.
I love that movie. That's really good. Somebody in here just said Stillwater from Almost Famous. I agree.
Great. I love basically everything that Joaquin does as Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
And honestly, Reese Witherspoon as
Carter.
June Carter is wonderful.
I adore the musical performances in the Mark Wahlberg film Rockstar, which if none of you guys have ever seen, it's a guilty pleasure movie for me. I love Rockstar, but
Never seen it.
It's all the songs are written by like true like 80s butt rock guys, and they're all performed by like Zakk Wylde from Black Label Society and Jason Bonham, John Bonham's son, and it's all like a real band performing all these songs.
Right.
But the songs like Stand Up and Shout and like Blood Pollution and I can't think of the other one, but they're all really good actually if you're into that stuff, and that movie is sweet. That's another movie, Rockstar. If we can ever find a way to feature on a show,
I've never seen it.
it's so dumb. You love it.
I'd love it.
It's
You
great.
also love Rock of Ages, don't you? Or you just love Cruise and Rock of Ages?
Just Cruise.
Just Cruise.
Stacey Jacks.
So it was The Rock, Warrior, Rocky
Basis
4.
1996. Stand Up and Shout. That's the one. Stand Up and Shout. It's fantastic.
Oh, The Rock, Warrior, Rocky 4, Mission Impossible 3, and Scott Pilgrim are all 5 of them.
Really good.
love
John Spence, John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly in Walk Hard is actually excellent. I love Horde. Okay, so AMA question, John Coster, thank you so much. Remember, that is held every Saturday or every weekend on our Instagram. Go and check it out. Ben, there's 3 action movie categories.
Totally ridiculous. Totally legitimate and ridiculously legitimate. They explain themselves, I think, to some degree. Which category do you feel this movie fits in?
I want you to hop in first because you're the guy that knows this business.
This movie's totally ridiculous.
Is it?
Yeah.
But it has to be, right?
I think it has to be. I think it's impossible to watch this movie and not feel like you're watching something that's super silly, but it's great. I think you're
works.
supposed to buy into that, but I also think you're supposed to laugh at all kinds of weird moments that they don't even necessarily intend you to.
Okay.
Like, I think it's okay for you to do that because this movie is so zany, but I think there's so many things that are so strange. Yeah, exactly. Will McLean says totally ridiculous in a good way, and
Yeah.
I think that's the best way of putting it. I don't think it's totally ridiculous in the way that like Demolition Man is like cringily bad in moments.
yeah.
Right? It's like the moments that make you laugh unintentionally, it's like kind of okay because it's supposed to be so silly.
Okay, so Danusa says it's either totally legit or totally ridiculous. Totally legit because it's completely self-aware and done purposefully. James Spence says totally legit because there's a style to what Wright does and he sticks to his rules 100%. I think I'm actually going to go middle category.
Okay.
For the same reasons that they've said and the same reasons that you've said. I think that there has to be some level of legitimacy to this, to where I'm watching it and I'm like, I love that there's a random roulette wheel or that there's a wud and the thud and like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It does feel ridiculous, but I think it's done just enough to where I'm going to put it in the middle category.
I think that's fair. Before we get to the last thing, there's just one last thing left on the show, but I want to just tell a last story because I forgot about this, and I think it's a relevant story for this show. My good buddy Max Brockman, who is a longtime fan of the show, he's probably not watching now, but he's watched a lot of episodes.
He better be watching.
He and I loved Scott Pilgrim. So we lived in a house together when we were like 19, a bunch of friends, like college kind of aged friends, and we wanted to write a comic book, I remember. And so we Max and I wrote this comic book called Super Best Friends. It was basically just like a comic book of two characters, me and Max, going by character names from Swayze movies. So I played a character named Dean Youngblood, and he played a character named Wade Garrett.
Those are sweet.
Wade Garrett from Roadhouse,
Yeah,
Dean
yeah.
Youngblood from the film Youngblood, played by Rob Lowe. And we just made fun of all of our friends, basically. And David Michael Frank, our good buddy, his name was Barney Michael Franks. And it was dumb. It was like a super fun comic book. We actually like storyboarded and plotted out like 2 issues of it. I think I still have it saved somewhere in a Google Doc. But Emerald City Comic Con that year, Brian Lee O'Malley, who created Scott Pilgrim, was there. And I went and I had my Scott Pilgrim Volume 1. And he's a really quiet guy. He kind of talked like this. And I was like, hey, man, I'm the biggest fan. My buddy and I are doing this comic book, super best friends. And do you think there's any chance that you could draw a sketch of the two of us in the back of my comic? And he was like, Max must have been with me. And he was like, I normally don't do things like that, but you guys seem pretty cool. And he did it. And he drew a sketch, a quick sketch of Max and I in the back of my Scott Pilgrim Volume 1. Sometime in the next year, I lent that comic book to a girl I was dating.
No.
And I have never seen it again.
No.
Yeah, that's a true
I don't think I knew that part. I knew that you didn't have the copy anymore.
Yeah.
And I knew that you and Max had the comic. I don't think I knew that he actually drew it in
He drew the sketch. Maybe I'm misremembering and he didn't draw the sketch. Maybe he just signed it, but I'm pretty sure he drew the sketch because I remember telling that story and I remember like he said that. So there's no way that he would have said that if he didn't draw
What's
the sketch.
her name? I'll find her.
I was actually just thinking if there's any. I was like, but that was in 2008.
was a decade ago.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if reaching out 11 years later to some girl I dated for like a month is going to work out so well.
What
Hey.
a perfect way to lose the comic. This comic book, though, to
Yeah,
an X. You
I
know,
know.
That
if
is-
there was ever a way to lose a Scott Pilgrim comic, it's to an X.
It's
That
not
is-
even an ex. It was a girl I dated for 3 weeks. Like I couldn't even, other than her first and last name, I could tell you 0 characteristics about this person. I remember so little. It's been such a long
amazing.
time.
I mean, 2008. I wasn't even in LA yet.
No, I moved the next
Yeah,
year.
yeah, it's
it was in
crazy.
Seattle that I lost it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
crazy.
I know.
All right, so
Brutal.
there is one more thing though.
Belford, don't. The army will hunt her down. Never, never, ever.
So she's okay. She's okay.
Yeah, so there's one last thing left to do on the show, and that's called The Pitch.
Mom, you didn't do it.
The pit.
Beautiful.
So, the pitch. This is going to be for Shazam. Andrew and I, when we do our plotting ahead stuff, we usually set up a list of about 8 movies over the next 8 weeks. And sometimes we have flex weeks where we're like, okay, is this movie going to be good or bad?
Yep.
We have made the mistake, like in certain cases, like Independence Day Resurgence,
Where we just go and we're like, no, it'll be great, and it's horrible.
of covering movies that are just bad. And we choose to not cover those movies because that's a bad decision. And so we had decided to maybe cover Shazam or maybe cover Batman versus Superman, which I think eventually we might do because we both like kind of have a soft spot for that movie.
Yeah, we kind of love that movie.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of love all the bad DCU movies a little bit. I other than Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I was gonna say, other than Suicide Squad, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's no way Shazam is gonna be bad.
I've heard nothing. Like we were supposed to go to a screening of it last night,
Right.
And everyone we know at this point has seen it because they've been screening it for a month solid.
I know, it's making me crazy.
Yeah, but I landed last night at midnight, and so we didn't get to go to the screening, and so we're gonna just go see it, like all of you, like everybody else who
Just
goes
like
to the
you
movies.
peasants out. No, just joking.
We're gonna see it tomorrow night, and then we're gonna cover. We have to do a pre-tape because I'm leaving town next week for the whole week as I prepare for Schmodown Chicago.
He does. I'm so jealous.
I'm
It's gonna be
so excited.
It's like almost 1,000 people there at this point, right?
I think it's 900 people.
It's insane, and every ticket's sold out. There's so many VIP. Like, it's gonna be massive,
It's gonna be absolutely nuts.
and I
okay?
actually want you to win.
that's nice of you.
Yeah, whatever.
Don't jinx it.
I hate you.
I know what you're trying
You're
to do.
gonna lose. But yeah, so we're gonna cover Shazam. I was actually trying to think, should we do like a live video on Action Industries Instagram of the episode, so people can watch along with us still and maybe comment, so we kind of have a live chat? I don't know. I was thinking about something kind of cool like that.
live stream it early,
Like
and then-
live stream us doing like maybe 10 minutes of the episode on Friday, because we won't actually have a live chat. We won't be giving away the whole show.
We could just do the show early. Just have 2 shows this week, actually. And then it just lives for a week and a half.
Interesting. That's something we'll talk about. But guys, let us know what you think on. Let us know what you think about it on our Twitter. That's a place where we'll be able to see the interact back and forth. We'll figure out what we want to do on Friday.
Yeah, at Team Action Show. So go check that out. One more time, guys. Patreon.com/Team Action. There's so many cool things coming up. That's the best way to interact with us. You can send us private messages there. We have a million cool things we're announcing. A new video going up today, and those amazing challenge coins that we talked about from Nick Gilmore. Big shout out to Nick Gilmore. These things are incredible. These are going to be part of a special giveaway we're doing at an event in Houston. So stay tuned there on Patreon to understand what is happening there. Big shout out to our generals, Andrew Hayes, Paul Denuzzo, Billy Bedford, John Getz, and John Patterson. Boom. We salute you. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mom. See you guys next week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.